The next interactive tool is the drop shadow tool. This is a very important topic because you're going to be applying a lot of shadows in your work. And in some applications it can be complicated, difficult. In Corel Draw it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And it's all because of the interactivity of that tool. It's found down here in the interactive tool flyout. Right dead center we have the interactive drop shadow tool. I'm going to select that. To apply the interactive drop shadow tool, it's much like it was with the other interactive tools. It's a click and drag. Depending on where you click and what direction you move is how the shadow is applied. Very intuitive, you'll see right away. So if I select this ellipse, which as you can see I've applied a fill color to it that makes it kind of look rounded. We have some light reflection in the upper left hand corner, which indicates to me that the shadow should be in the bottom right hand corner, kind of moving away from the light. To do that, I'm going to click down here near the bottom and drag away from this object like so. And when I release, we have a nice transparent drop shadow, bang, in the direction we want. If I haven't applied it just so, I can adjust it by moving the target point around my page to come up with the drop shadow that we're really looking for. And this slider in the middle allows me to very intuitively adjust the opacity. I can move it towards black, make it a much darker shadow, less transparent. Or I can move it towards the light, and I'll just put that back into the middle so we have an average drop shadow. Now to affect the different types of drop shadow, right now I'm dealing with a perspective drop shadow, one that's kind of flowing away, that is stretched from the object itself. The difference between the two types, we have perspective and we have a flat drop shadow. And a flat drop shadow is something where the shadow does not touch your object and it makes the object look like it's standing out. A perspective drop shadow is one that does touch the object at some point and it defines where the object is connected to the surface that the shadow is being cast. So if I take this drop shadow and move the origin point to the right, now my drop shadow appears to being cast, which the fill color doesn't cooperate with, but you can understand. Or I can move the origin to the left, do the same thing, have the drop shadow appear there. If I move the origin into the center, this is where we have our flat drop shadow. And that really takes me, and I'm just going to put it back since it belongs over here. That takes me to my last point, which is the flat drop shadow you can use when you're doing text effects. This is something you're going to see a lot. If I select my text and then click and drag down and to the right a little bit, you see that the drop shadow here, and this is something you see all the time. You see it so often, as a matter of fact, that we forget we're even seeing it because it looks natural. In order to make that text look like it's jumping off the page, I think I'm going to zoom in on that. Shift F2, zoom to selected, and I'm just going to tap F3 to take a step back. And I'll move it into a more subtle place. There we go. And up here in the property bar, you can affect the feathering, which is how soft the edges are and how quickly it dissipates into the background color. So if I decrease that from 15 to 10, for example, you can see that that shadow sharpens up quite a bit. And that's really yours to create the lighting effects. How many light sources are there? How clear is the shadow going to be? How well defined is it going to be? How sharp is the object? How close is the object to the background? Those are all questions you have to ask when you're applying your drop shadow. But mainly, just keep working with it until it looks the way you want it to. If I take that shadow far away, well, now it looks like the text is really far off the page. And you can do some other things to make that effect kind of come alive. You can also drag colors into your drop shadows if you wish. So I click and drag a color here and drop it in. Now my drop shadow is being applied a different color, indicating that the light is either tinted or the object itself is somehow transparent and the light is passing through the object and affecting the color of the drop shadow. As you can see, the tool is very interactive, very easy to use, and it gives you a very hands-on application for the drop shadow tool.